Hi, everyone, and welcome to our next free webinar for executive and personal assistants. I'm Nikki Christmas, founder of Practically Perfect PA and the EA Campus. And today we are talking about emails, more specifically about the conversation assistants should have with their executives about managing their emails. So before we get started, we've got roughly about an hour. I want to ask you a question and get you using the chat function that we have here on YouTube. So we're going to be interacting with each other today over the next hour. So please do jump on to the chat now and let me know what you are hoping to get out of the webinar today and some of the challenges you are having around email management. It's also really useful for me to know that you're with me, that you can hear me, that you can see me. So yes, on the comments, let me know what are some of your challenges around email and what you're hoping to get out of the webinar today. Alternatively, if you just want to say hello and let me know that you can see and hear me, then that will also be fantastic. So I have a short presentation that I want to share with you about the very start of getting to grips with email management, the conversation you should have with your executive to set those expectations. And I want to tell you a little bit more about our online course that we have just launched around email management. It's called the Effective Email Management Online Course. And we also have time for a Q&A. So again, before we get started, let me know that you can see me. Let me know that you can hear me. I can't see anybody writing on the chat. So fingers crossed you can all see me and hear me okay. We've got around about 50 of you watching at the moment. So don't be shy. Let me know where you're from, where you're joining us from today, and how you feel about email management, because it's definitely one of those conversations that I have regularly with assistants. It's something that we cover quite a lot. So yeah, let me know what you think and feel about email and some of the challenges that you have when you're managing your executives' email management. So while I am loading up my slides, as I said, let me know if you have had an initial conversation with your executive. How did that go? Was it good? Was it bad? Were they receptive? Have you had a conversation with your executive about emails? Let me know so we can start the conversation, because this is a conversation and you best get used to it because you're going to be having these conversations with your executive as well. So here we go. Here we go. Here are the slides. So the initial conversation. Hello. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Let's have a look here what you're saying. Hello, would love to know how to organize two very different CEOs of a tech company, especially when I don't understand half of the content. Abby, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. You can see and hear me okay. My boss sends me too many emails. How can I address this with him, or should I just keep quiet? Joanna, we'll come back to that. Hold that thought for the Q&A, because that's a very good question. I've never had to manage my executive's emails, but he's retiring and my new executive may want me to take those on for her, Judy. Then this is a brilliant time for you to jump on this webinar. Fantastic. Okay, what else is everybody saying? Hi, I'm having difficulties getting my CEO to adjust to new processes. I'm trying to implement. She has a nightmare of an inbox. No matter what I do, she misses things. Rachel, you could potentially be I'm wondering if you're my VA in disguise there, because that sounds very familiar, but we can talk about that as well. Okay, right. So the initial conversation about email management should focus on how your executive feels about their emails. And we're going to get a little bit into the psychology of that. If they're happy for you to take charge, happy days. If they're reluctant, you may have to take your time and allow them some space to adjust to the system that we suggest. So I've got a system in place that I'm going to run through with you. And just, as I said, get that conversation started with your executive, get them starting to feel comfortable about managing their emails, and just really having those initial conversations about something that's incredibly crucial for an assistant to do. Because at the end of the day, if you are able to effectively manage your executives' emails, you are going to save them a huge amount of time, which is one of the fundamental things assistants should be doing for their executives. So I want to look at some of the areas that we should cover. And as I said, some of the questions that we should start to ask. So this is the first port of call when it comes to effectively managing your executives' emails. And it's what I call the replying agreement. So again, let me know in the chat if this is something that sounds familiar to you. For me, the replying agreement is, will you reply as your executive or as yourself? So we recommend at Practically Perfect PA that you reply as yourself, to showcase your authority and the value that you bring to your role. So again, on the chat, I'm going to take my time with each of these points because I want to get, really, we've got an hour together. That I want this to be a community feel. So please, again, just on the chat, let's get involved and talk about this together. So who is replying on their executive's behalf? So they're pretending to be their executive when they are going into the emails and replying. And who is replying in their own name? So let me know in the chat if you're replying on your executive's behalf, so you sign things off as your executive, or you move the emails into your inbox and you reply from there, or from your executive's email address, but you sign it off as yourself. And I'd also like to know, in your experience, if there are any certain situations that need a reply from you or your executive. So again, on the chat, let me know if there are certain situations where you absolutely reply as yourself or certain situations where you reply as your executive. So let me have a look what everybody's saying. Where are we? So a little bit of both. Miriam is saying my own name. Abby is saying I reply my own name, email signature from both CEO inboxes. A mixture depending on what the email is. So Charlotte, let us know what that situation would be where it's different to you, because I'm interested in knowing that if there's certain clients or customers that you would reply on from your executive perhaps, or if it's internal, it comes from you. So again, let me know if you're using different hats and using different kind of communication methods with different types of people. So Isabella said I prefer replying as myself. So again, another question for you: why do you reply as yourself? Do you think there is something in that where you have more authority and you are showcasing your value when you reply as yourself? Do you feel maybe if you reply as your executive, you kind of getting a little bit lost? Or maybe it's simply that you want that person to know that your executive has an assistant and maybe every email should actually be sent to you rather than to your executive. So again, it's just kind of aim of this webinar is to have those initial conversations with your executive for sure, but also to really get you to start thinking about email management and actually not just doing the emails, but actually thoughtfully replying and how you're managing the system. So Charlotte has said, generally for internal, I would sign off from me and CC myself to pick it up directly. For external, it's as my executive, mimicking the tone as best I can. Charlotte, that's a great point. So we can talk about that a little bit as well, how you reply and start to understand how your executive would reply. So that's a very good point. So replying agreements, again, it's just that initial conversation with your executive about setting that expectation, who replies and how you do it. This is the next point. So when and how often should the inbox be checked? So that's something I say a lot, and it's something I have to repeat a lot to assistants. You don't want to live in your executive's inbox. But your executive might expect you to reply to messages quickly. So again, let me know if that's something that you've come up against. So the reason I say you don't want to live in your executive's inbox is because if any of you have been on a Practically Perfect PA course before, or you've done any training around email management is not your job. It isn't anybody's job. It's kind of crazy if you think about it, that we as a society have given the ability to people to be able to contact us whenever they want about anything that they want and expect us to reply. We don't do it with if you think about letters. We don't really do letters. We don't give our home address out and then just expect a ton of people to just start sending us stuff. But with email, we're happily giving our email address out left, right, and center. And there's no kind of filter as to who can email us and who can't. And then everybody expects a reply. So just the thought of it is kind of crazy, right? So I kind of always go back to that point that, processing emails is not anybody's job. So if you bear that in mind, you have other work to do that is way more value adding than processing emails. So please do not ever just spend all of your time in your executive's inbox. But I know that's harder said than done when your executive has absolutely loads of emails. And on top of that, they expect you to reply to those messages really quickly. So you need to define the amount of time your executive wants you to dedicate to their emails. And on top of that, the response time per email. So for assistants, this is kind of part of the conversation where you may have to push back a little bit, because your executive might say, oh, I want all of my emails answered in a day. Some executives might be like, I want morning emails processed by the end of the morning, or I want emails answered straight away. Now, to me, that's kind of crazy, because what are you giving up in exchange for processing emails? Probably a lot of really important project work, probably a lot of really important strategy work, work where you can add a tremendous amount of value. You shouldn't be spending that much time in your executive's inbox. So for me, when I was an assistant, I preferred to look at emails 3 times per day: in the morning when I first got into the office, after lunch, and then before I left at the end of the day. So it might change depending on where your organization is at its busiest. For example, if you work a lot with, say, the West Coast of the States, you might change that around a bit because you get an absolute flurry of emails after lunch and then further into the evening, or vice versa if you work if your work comes from other parts of the world. Alternatively, be flexible with it. If your executive is traveling, then you might just want to change that up a little bit as well. But my point is, you need to have that initial conversation with your executive, because you do not want to live in their inbox, but you want those expectations set early so that you are able to process them in chunks of time. What I would also say on that point is, when I was an assistant, I would try to respond to every email if it deserved a reply, because not every email deserves a reply. And if I couldn't answer the query, I'd send a holding email. So I realize that's quite a lot of information. I want to check in with you guys on the chat. So let us know again how often you reply to emails. If you're kind of guilty of living in your executive's inbox, if you've had that conversation, again, just let me know so I can get a sense of where we are. So Rachel said, I triage a few times a day. My CEO doesn't expect me to check her inbox continuously. So Caroline, I have an interesting setup with my CEO. He manages his inbox on a daily basis. I'm then about a month behind, going through and picking up important ones he hasn't replied to. That's very interesting. I replies me on behalf because he's insanely behind. So you're kind of like a sweeping position where you're just picking anything else up that he's missed, which is great. At least 3 times a day. So he answers the most urgent ones and then flags me so I can pick anything else up. Okay, that's brilliant. So it all sounds like you are not living in your executive's emails. So that's good. That's very good to hear, because that's when you start to realize how far behind you are on your work. So let's have a look at my next point. Okay, so oversight of emails. So again, this is something I know assistants think about a lot, and there is definitely a conversation that needs to be had. So does your executive want to see the email exchange, or are they happy for you to delete or archive the emails once you've taken action? So again, it's because this is the initial conversation to have with the executive, or you're at the point with your executive where their emails are out of control, your system's not working, and you need to sit down and work it out. So Does your executive want to see the email exchange, or are they happy for you to delete or archive the emails once you've taken action? So, in other words, how much control does your executive want to have over their emails? So, for me, the way I work with my assistant, I have absolute faith and trust in her that she's going to answer the emails. So once she's seen them, she'll take them out of my inbox, which makes my inbox look lovely and clean. And I'm happy if they've been answered. I'm happy never to have seen the email exchange. But if I want to, I can go in and have a look either in her inbox or sent items, or I can have a look if she's replied from my inbox. I can go in and have a look. But for me, they are out of my inbox, which is really, and I'll come on to this a bit later, but it relieves my stress to see not that many emails in my inbox. So again, in the chat, let us know, how do you work with your executive in terms of oversight of emails? Do they want to be CC'd on everything? Are they happy for you to answer? I think asking these questions will show your executive how much thought you are putting into the management of their emails, which, if anybody is working with an executive who's reluctant to give up that control, this level of thought will hopefully help you start to build that trust with them. So oversight of emails, how do you guys work that out? Do you CC them in so they've got that full chain, or do you take everything out of their inbox? And I'll have a look to see what you're saying. So Audrey said, yes, we got that conversation the second day I was in, which is fantastic because you're setting the groundwork from day number 2, which is really good. And as I said, it gives you, should hopefully, and Audrey, let us know if you notice this, that level of detail and that level of thought makes your executive feel so much more able to give up, that control over emails, which a lot of executives have. So Abby said, I copy them in to let them know I'm dealing and have picked it up. So Nina said, I flag all items periodically that only he can respond to. Caroline said, my CEO doesn't mind the volume. He likes to see all the exchanges. He likes filing them. I have delegation on his Google Mail, but I can't create folders, which is a pain. I understand that. And Caroline, it's an interesting one to see, be interesting to see how much time your CEO spends on processing emails, because it's an interesting one, because it obviously then is a comfort thing and they like to be able to see what's going on. But I wonder how much time that takes up that maybe could be spent on other things. But again, each to their own. This is all about having those initial conversations for sure. Okay, so oversight of email, again, is something that you need to talk to your executive about and just lay that groundwork and get an understanding of how much control they actually want over their emails. So this is something that I wanted to touch on again, and I talked about it just briefly there. So what are the stress points when it comes to your executive's inbox? So do they forget to reply to emails? Do they have too many, say, promotional emails or personal emails that never get opened? They've signed up to a ton of newsletters and then they never have time to read them. Are there too many folders and subfolders? Do they action the requests that come in via email? Do they even get around to answering their emails? Do they answer their emails but then forget to actually do the work that's associated with the email? So understanding the psychology of your executive's behavior when it comes to emails is really important. And it's actually quite interesting as well, because we're all very different. So for me, I think because I was a former assistant, managing my emails was really, really stressful. So for those of you who don't know, I'm the founder of Practically Perfect PA. I moved from being an executive assistant into running a business where I train executive assistants, but I went from being an executive assistant to a business owner. So for a long time, I still very much had an executive assistant mindset rather than the CEO mindset. So I used to get really, really stressed with emails. I had the expectation that every email should be answered, and I was spending way too much time in my inbox and then getting really stressed when I decided not to look at my emails, and then I would see the inbox getting fuller and fuller. So when my VA, Cara, started, she asked me what were my stress points, and it felt like such a relief just kind of sharing that anxiety with someone and then knowing they could manage it for me, manage that stress level. So again, on the chat, let us know, what are your, and have you thought about it? What are your executives' stress points? Are they stressed by email? And if they are, what makes them stressed? Because, as I said, that psychology behind it will then start to build the trust when you take over managing it. And we'll give you some insight into what you can do to help them. Because obviously, for assistants, we are there to support our executives and help them as well, particularly with things that they find stressful. So Carolina said, back to the sweeping, Caroline. He has so many he doesn't answer. So I'm currently going through September's. I think that's fantastic. I like that he's trying to answer them. Back-to-back meetings, so no time to read emails, and 150 to 200 emails coming every day. So Sharina said 3,000 unread emails. I mean, that would give me a heart attack. That's crazy. Abby said too much junk and updates. Miriam said yes to all of your questions. Yeah, absolutely. Yes to all of it. It's all bad. Yeah, no. So it is, as I said, this is all about getting those expectations set. So having an understanding of where your executive is with their emails. One of the other things I think that is worth saying, and again, I say this quite a lot on email, a lot on training courses, for assistants whose executives struggle to give up control of the inbox. Sometimes, and I'm only saying sometimes, what you will find is your executive doesn't know what else to do. So their emails have become their job. They've spent so much time stressing about emails and trying to reply to every email that they have forgotten that they actually have other work that they need to do, and it all becomes on their email. So let me know if this sounds familiar. Their to-do list is their emails. Their communication methods are their emails. So everything is done inside the inbox. They live in it, and therefore they don't want to give up control to anybody else, because then what are they going to do? And they're going to have to think through, okay, well, what's my job now? And that can be really scary. So if you are working with an executive who struggles to give up their emails, then it's, again, just worth looking. Okay, are they in their emails all the time? Do I need to unpick that first before I even start to process their emails and getting them down to, the inbox zero dreams that we all have? So the psychology behind it is really interesting, something that is well worth thinking about. So moving on to some of the kind of processing parts of email management. So asking them, moving the action from the email into the to-do list. And I just touched on that. So what do I mean by this? How does your executive's emails sync with their to-do list? And how should you treat actions that come out of the email messages? So as I said, do they use their inbox as their to-do list? So if they do use their emails and their inbox specifically as their to-do list, should you encourage them to move away from that and start using a to-do list? So be that, Microsoft Outlook, for example, has a to-do list. Or do you start to think about moving them onto something like Trello or Slack or some kind of collaboration tool that's outside of the email domain? So my answer to that would be yes, because I don't think anybody should be using an email inbox as a to-do list. But that is absolutely a behavioral change that your executive is going to have to initiate. So you do need to consider that and action that quite slowly over a longer period of time. So again, I just want to come back to the chat on that one. So have you had that conversation about the actions that come out of emails? How do you deal with them? Do they have a separate to-do list, or do you leave them in the inbox for them to then action? And then how do you track whether or not that action has been done, that piece of work has been done? I'm going to hop back onto the chat to see what everybody thinks about this one. So let's have a look here. So brilliant, Abby. I link the email to their Asana list. So perfect. So they've got a collaboration tool, a to-do list that works outside, and in Abby's case, it's Asana that works outside of the email. And then all you do is link the email to the Asana list, and they can come out of their emails and work from there. So effectively, what Abby's doing there is your Abby's executive doesn't need to look in their emails at all. They just can work off of their to-do list, which is fantastic. A great use of technology. This is really difficult. Changing your executive's behavior is one of the hardest things you can do as an assistant, and it takes a lot of patience. So Miriam said, tried Microsoft To Do. It didn't go through that either. Yep, it is really hard. This is, as I said, behavioral change is the hardest thing you can do. Hardest thing you can do as an assistant. Caroline said, if I transferred to another platform, it would just be another long list that he wouldn't look at. Yep. So Shireen, a separate to-do list, but we use action folders to file emails. Shireen has also said reply, meetings, review, delegates. So that's the set of folders that Shireen has got in place there. Rachel's made a great point. I use Gmail labels, critical, response needed, action required, and star it so it's the top of her inbox. We have Asana, but my CEO doesn't utilize it consistently. Behavioral change is hard in capital letters. It really is. I'm not kind of denying that this stuff is really hard. It's really tough. So as I said, if you lay the initial groundwork down when you work with a new executive, it's very much easier. I'd also say having these kind of conversations in the interview process is also really important, because then you can decide whether or not this is something that you want to work with or not. So it's that hard. It's worth setting your stall out at an early stage. So let's have a look at the next one. What emails are the most important and should be flagged and answered straight away? So this is around about who are the most important people in your executive's inbox. You need to know that so you can action those emails quickly. They become your priority. So you don't miss anything. And you need to get that kind of sense from your executive, because there might be people that you assume are important that actually aren't that important to your executive, or they are really important, but your executive maybe hasn't been giving them enough attention as they perhaps should be. So again, just have that conversation about who emails your executive and how important are they. So again, just get that sense of the important people in your executive's life. Once you know that, then there are a few options for you. You can use technology to then automatically move those people's emails into your inbox. You can set notifications when those emails come in. You can change the color of them. You can flag them. You know, there's lots of things in terms of technology that you can do to ensure those emails aren't forgotten and they are actioned straight away. So for me, I'm thinking clients, stakeholders, your executive's boss, if they have one, and you know, they will do, whether they're the CEO or not, they'll have key stakeholders that they need to charm, and not ignoring their emails, not replying to them will be detrimental. So yes, just get a sense from your executive who the most important people are that need answering straight away. So again, it's just laying that groundwork. Oh, I just missed a slide there. There we go. Here we go. So this is the last one that I've got. When should your executive process their emails once you have triaged the inbox? And I'm going to pick up on a couple of points here that I saw in the chat. So when should your executive process their emails? Once you have triaged the inbox. Once per day, depending on how many emails they get, more than once per day. And then what do you do to ensure that they have that time to process emails? So how do you block that time so that they have the time to process emails? So as I said, it depends on how much importance your executive puts on their emails. So it could be that you work for an executive who really values emails, really gets a lot of important emails that they need to spend time thinking about and replying to, in which case it's really worthwhile you blocking time in their calendar to dedicate to email management, be it half an hour at the beginning of the day, half an hour at the end of the day. It's also probably worth you ensuring you have time with your executive to make sure that emails are answered. So I know a couple of you have said there on the chat, you know, my executive doesn't answer emails. They're so busy that emails don't get answered. They don't have the time for it. or you give them the time in their inbox, so you give them time in their calendar, but that time gets wasted. They don't actually use that time for emails. So to help the process, if they have emails that are important that need to be replied to, be it from customers, stakeholders, whatever it happens to be, then it's worthwhile you blocking that time in their calendar and then physically going into their office or on a Zoom call or whatever it happens to be, however you're working, and go through those emails with them to get the answers that are required for you then to either email that person back or draft an email on behalf of your executive, which they can then scan and send. I know this is all a lot of hand holding, but executives need that more than others. So I would absolutely say if you've got an executive where you've tried everything to get them to start clearing out their inbox, then please take that time to go in there and physically or over a Zoom call get those answers to the emails that you need so you can reply on their behalf. Because one of the things about being an assistant that we talk about, but maybe isn't forefront of your mind, is reputation management. And unfortunately, it just is the way that if somebody doesn't answer emails or is, a bit chaotic with their emails, it affects their reputation because it doesn't look as professional as it might. So if you can start to just repair their reputation by making sure that their emails are answered, then you are adding, again, just a tremendous amount of value. So let me know again on the chat how you go about ensuring your executive has the time to triage their emails. Let's have a look. So let's have a look here. So Audrey said, I absolutely get this. He's stressed by the number of emails he receives each day and wants to read them all to make sure he knows everything. I can completely get that, but I doubt every email has that level of information either that he needs or is worthwhile reading. What else have we got to? Yep. So sorry, just looking at the to-do list aspect of it all. So Miriam, brilliant, Miriam. I use Stuart Snook's tips from your Managing Up Summit. Fantastic. I'm glad that you got some tips there. I've tried action folders. He never looks at them. He prefers to live in his inbox. So if you've got an executive who prefers to live in their inbox, I completely understand that. That's where starring and flagging and automating, those kind of aspects of email management become really handy. And we talk about that in the course that I'm going to come on to in a minute. So Miriam said, that's exactly what we're doing now. I wait next time on the call until he answers the call. Totally agree with the reputation point. Thank you, Isabella. One of the other things that's worth pointing out, if you've got an executive who's stressed about emails, they have a lot of emails, don't email them. Don't add to that level of stress. So it's brilliant. One of the things that a lot of assistants do is they work through emails and everything else that they've got to do in the day on their to-do list. And then they'll send a roundup email to their executive. Now, that's brilliant. And if your executive doesn't have a huge amount of emails, or you have got to that point with them where you are, you're triaging their emails, everything gets either the 3Ds, done, delegated, deleted, your inbox management is a well-oiled machine. Then a roundup email at the end of the day to go to your executive is fantastic because they get to see everything you've done in the day. They get a real sense of what you do, the value that you bring. But if you've got an executive where that's not the case, another email is not going to be looked at, is not going to be appreciated. So you need to find another way of showing them all of the work that you're doing and giving them all of the updates they need. So just think about other communication methods and what works best for them. Are they on their phone a lot? So is it WhatsApp? Would they appreciate a quick voice message that you can send to them that they can just quickly listen to? For somebody that likes podcasts, for example, if they've got their earphones in a lot, quick voice message that they can quickly listen to when they're, running to get the train or on the tube home or whatever it happens to be, really, really helpful. So just have a think about that as well, just other ways that you can communicate with them that don't require email if they're already overly stressed about their emails. So that's another point for you there. So that's all of the points I had around and the initial conversation to have with your executive. As I said, the conversation is best when it's in those early days of starting to build rapport with your executive and just starting to work with them. So for any of you who are watching that are moving on to another executive, anytime soon, then this is perfect for you. It's a really good way to start to get an understanding of how your executive works and where you can support them. For those of you who are or who have been with your executive for a while, then you've just come off the back of a webinar about email management. Now's the time to have the conversation. So again, just mention to them that you've been on the webinar, you've come away with a few ideas. Can we just sit down and have a half an hour conversation about how best to manage your emails? And actually, if there's anything we can be doing that may be better. Because again, for assistants, one of our areas that we can add a huge amount of value is innovating processes and procedures that maybe aren't quite working, just being able to fix them slightly so everybody is more productive. So I hope that you have found these questions and thoughts valuable. I really want to come on to a Q&A. We've got about 20 minutes left. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit more about our online course that we have just launched, which, as you can see in the top corner there, you can see the logo for it. It's Effective Email Management, and it's a 6-module course which covers everything assistants need to know about managing their executives' emails. So yes, online you can find an absolute ton of courses about how to manage emails and how to get to inbox zero and how to make the most of Microsoft Outlook or Gmail. But there aren't a huge amount of courses that are designed for assistants who manage their executives' emails. So this course not only covers all of the kind of automating and processing part of email management, it also deals with how assistants have conversations with their executives about email management, how they get their executives to give up control of email management. So also all of those aspects of the role that are so very specific to assistants. So I'm going to show you a little video to give you a little bit more information about the course, and then I am happy to answer any questions. So have a little look at the course and this will give you an idea of what to expect. There you go, a little bit more information there about the Effective Email Management online course. As I said, this gives you the tools that you need to master every aspect of inbox management from the perspective of assistants. So the course is £150, that's 180 euros and 190 US dollars. And for those of you who are joining us on the webinar today, we also have a 10% discount that we'd like to share with you. So if you are interested in the course, you can take an extra 10% off of the price of the course using this code, which is webinar 10. We're not very inventive with our codes, but hopefully you'll remember that one, webinar 10. I also just want to quickly draw your attention to our bundle course. So for those of you who've been following Practically Perfect PA for a while, and particularly over this last year, we've launched 4 new courses over the last, I think, 4 or 5 months, mini courses that really dig deep into specific parts of the role. And we've just recently put 3 of those courses into a bundle course called the Effective Assistant. I'm just bringing the details up now. So the effective assistant covers email management, which is the effective email management course. It also covers calendar management, diary scheduling management, however you want to call it, and meetings management. So it's 3 of our brand new courses. Those 3 courses are all £150, €180 or $190, but we've put them together in a bundle for you and taken a discount off of that so that you get all 3 for a discounted rate. And you can buy the effective assistant for £350, €440 or $490. So please do check out those 2 courses, either the effective email course, or if you want to delve a little bit deeper into other aspects of the role, diary management, meetings management, and email management, then you can get those courses at a discounted rate through the effective assistant. And the same code is available to you for the effective assistant as well, which is webinar 10. Okay, so on to my favorite bit of our live webinars. It's a Q&A with you guys. So we've got 20 minutes to answer any questions that you have, either about the courses, about Practically Perfect PA, or about emails. So please do feel free to ask away, and I will do my best to answer for you. So I'm going to jump on the chat. So let's have a look. Becky has asked a question. Does anyone have any tips? My executive is a tech head, I'm going with. Correct me if I'm wrong, Becky. And it's like reading another language. So it's so hard to decipher what is required. So I'm getting from that you work with an executive who works in a really technical space, which is really difficult. I completely understand that. So I have advice for you for assistants who work with, executives who work in difficult industries. And obviously so many more assistants work in technology nowadays, and it's so fast paced. Sometimes it can feel hard to ask questions and get an understanding of the business. So I'm going to approach this in 2 ways. If your executive is open to it, absolutely ask the questions. No question, particularly when you work in a difficult space, is stupid or silly, and you should never feel like you're taking up their time, because it's really important for you to understand what is going on in the business, and for you to, if your executive's a scientist or an engineer or something very technical, you don't have to understand everything, but you do have to understand the jargon, and you do have to understand what they're talking about. And it's also really important that you understand the strategy of the business, so that you can then effectively answer the right emails on time, accept the right appointments, understand what's urgent, what's important, and how that fits into your executive's day, and actually also how that fits into your day. So ask questions. Don't feel silly about it, because it's going to make you better at your job, and your executive needs to understand that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to take your time in reading everything that is available to you to read. So go onto the company intranet, review all of your executives' emails, go back and read them all to get a sense of what they're talking about. See if there's any patterns in how they work and things that come up. Look at all of the reports that are available to you, read all of the paperwork, and then make yourself a list of things that you don't understand, and either run through those with your executive or find somebody in your organization that's willing to have those conversations with you. The more curious you are as an assistant, the better you will be at your job. So try and get to the bottom of things as much as you can, but don't just ask questions. Lay the groundwork yourself. You have to do some extra work and trying to understand things. A really great way of getting, if you work for, say, as an example, a tech company who have a product that's really specific and niche and complicated, find the salesperson in your organization, ask to borrow them for a bit and get them to sell the product to you. Because one of the skills that a salesperson has, or a communications person, is that they have to make that language really simple to be able to sell to people. So, and sell the benefits of the product to people. So find the salesperson, ask them for 10, 15 minutes of their time, buy them a coffee, and get them to simply explain to you the product, what's happening in the organization, how the products are moving forward, what's happening, so that you get kind of a layman's term explanation of what it is that the organization does. So if you have a look on the Practically Perfect PA YouTube, which you're on now, there's a session that I did a few years ago called How to Build Your Business Acumen. And that goes into really a lot of detail on how to start to understand your organization structure and business. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question, Becky. It looks like a few of you have already jumped on. So fantastic. Well done, everybody, for helping. It's all right. We always learn so much from each other, don't we? So well done for that. So Abby said, would love to hear about best practice. Make sure I'm doing a good job. So Abby, on the effective email management course, we do have a lot on there about best practice and how to triage emails and what works really well for assistants. Again, it's like anything. It's having those initial conversations with your executive to get a sense from them. Do they want to be living in inbox zero? That's another question that we could have asked. If they're dying to get to inbox zero, then you can be really ruthless with emails and say to them, this is how you get to inbox zero. You delete stuff. You don't reply to everything. You put stuff in folders. So again, it's just getting that sense from them, really what they want out of their emails. And then you get an idea of how ruthless you can be with their emails. But we cover this, as I said, we cover this a lot on the course as well. So there's a lot of examples on how different assistants process emails differently and how to go about triaging emails so that they're answered and actioned as well. What else have we got? How does the effective assistant bundle differ from the unrivaled assistant bundle? Rachel, fantastic question. So, as I said, we have launched 4 new courses this year. The 3 that are bundled up in the effective assistant are our effective email management course, our effective calendar management course, and our effective meetings management course. So the purpose of those courses are that they are relatively short. So they deal very specifically about emails, scheduling, and meetings. And they are specific about those topics. So the effective assistant bundle solely deals with those 3 courses. The unrivaled assistant is bundled up 3 other courses that we have, which are the assistant essentials, productivity and time management for assistants, and assistant mindset. Those courses are much more in depth. They cover a whole range of topics for assistants. We suggest you spend more time on those courses, but effectively they have been bundled up into the unrivaled assistant. So I hope that makes sense. You'll notice a difference in price points as well. The effective assistant bundle is cheaper than the unrivaled assistant because the courses are shorter and they are very specifically around certain skill sets for assistants, whereas the unrivaled assistant is slightly more expensive because there's more content and more modules in there. So I hope that helps answer that question. So Abby said, how to build your business acumen, missed what you said. So I have a video on our YouTube channel, which you are currently on, called How to Build Your Business Acumen. If you on a shoestring budget, I think that's what the title of the video is. So if you just have a quick look on our playlist, you'll be able to see it. It's about 40 minutes and it goes into quite a bit of depth on how you can build your business acumen in your organization without having to ask for any training budget. So it's looking at the resources that you have available to you. Claudette said, can someone send me ideas on what to name folders in my executive's inbox? On the course, you will find that we provide you with a template of how to name your folders. For me, I did as an assistant, I found the search function. I use Microsoft Outlook at the time, but I think it's the same in Gmail. I found the search function on Outlook was great. So it wouldn't be that difficult to find emails at all. So I didn't heavily use folders. Again, on the chat, if you don't agree, let me know. But I didn't heavily rely on folders. I managed, in my last role, I worked with 3 executives, so they each had a folder, and I would put associate at the top and then their name, so that their folders were at the very top. And then I would have things, I would have folders for the projects that I was working on, and I would also have ongoing work that I always dealt with. So I worked with the CFO. I had a finance folder. I had a project, as I said, I had project folders. I had vacation folders, just things that were regular for me. I also, and again, we have this on the course, I'd have a series of folders that I would highly recommend my executive also had, so that then I could just pop things straight into their folder system, so that they would know where to find certain emails as well. So I would also do that. I've got a question for you guys, which I think is an interesting one that a lot of assistants think about, is whether or not you delete things or you archive things. So let me know on the chat what you think about that. For me, as an assistant, it went against everything I'd ever read about email management, but I didn't delete any emails. I didn't delete anything. I would archive things and I would file things, but I never deleted a single email because, yeah, as Crystal said, I don't delete. Yeah, no, I didn't. And again, this is just where email management and training on email management differs for everybody else and for assistants, because you find so many articles about email management where it's like, you have to delete your emails. No, for assistants, we get asked things that are so, random that if you've deleted those emails, you can quickly go back and just check, your executive, who did I go out for dinner with in 2016 on that Friday night? If you've deleted that email exchange where you've set up that dinner, you're not going to remember. But if you've just archived everything, then you'll be able to quickly do a search and find that person. So no, I don't recommend that assistants delete things. And I think everybody seems to be in complete agreement about that. Audrey said, I don't delete it, but I don't archive them at the moment because I don't know how to. Depending on the email system that you use, I know I've moved on to Gmail, so I'm not going to say I know how to do it on Microsoft anymore. It might have changed, but on Gmail, it's a simple icon next to the delete button, which is archive, which is a little envelope with a downward arrow rather than a delete sign. So yeah, archiving is absolutely the way to go for assistance. So Caroline said, you mentioned in the reminder email, you're talking about mastering the art of responding to never-ending requests. I have many of these, many. Yeah, responding to never-ending requests. How do you even start with that? It's a very good question. So let me know, Caroline, what you mean by that never-ending requests. Is that never-ending requests from your executive or from people emailing? Because I want to get back, if it's to do with emailing, then it's worth reiterating the point that I made earlier. You don't have to reply to every email. I know this might be kind of, crazy for some assistants, and it might be that I've kind of gone rogue, but you don't have to reply to every email. And it's setting that expectation with your executive and explaining to them why you don't need to reply to every email. If your executive is the CEO of an organization and they are getting emails that, people are chancing things or asking for things or trying to sell them things, you don't need to reply to them. Not everybody deserves or should expect a reply on email. If it's not within the objectives of your executive, the goals of your executive, or moves the organization forward, you don't need to reply. So I'm just going to put that out there and I'm going to take a breath. You don't need to reply to everything. Also, with assistants, you don't need to be the person that actions everything. You are and should delegate. So if there are other members of the team that you work with who are better placed to answer the email, you can forward it on to them. You can phone them and say, this email has come in. I don't think I should be answering it, I'm going to forward it to you. Certainly my CEO shouldn't be answering it, because what will happen if you answer it, the person's going to reply. They're always going to expect you to reply. If you answer it on behalf of your CEO, that person will, or executive, whoever it happens to be, that person will think, I've sent this email to the right person. So they're going to send another email. So it just becomes a kind of a bit of a constant issue. You need to head it off at the pass. So if it doesn't deserve a reply, don't reply. If it doesn't need a reply from your executive or from you, delegate it so that you don't have to deal with that person again. Okay. I hope that answers the question, but let me know if not. Requests from customers for his time, his money, his advice. Something that I used to do when I was an assistant, we used to get absolutely tons and tons of sales calls, tons of them. So I set up a voicemail system that said, this is the executive isn't available at the moment, please leave a message. I would then go and check that voicemail at the end of every day. And if it was something important, I would reply and answer. I'd phone them back. If it wasn't, I wouldn't reply or answer them back. Same for email. You can set up a separate folder. You can set up rules where you're getting the same replies and emails from people. It can go into a folder which you can check once a week, once a day, whatever you feel comfortable with. They don't need to immediately go into your executive's inbox, and they don't need to either go into yours. So think of a way to filter out those emails that are, like, as you said, requests from customers. Okay, I understand that from customers, but trying to sell your executive things, his advice, for example. Another thing I would say with email, and again, we cover this on the course, is give yourself some breathing time. You don't have to answer every email straight away. It doesn't even have to be answered, depending on who it is, that week. So if you've left it a little bit of time, because people are so lazy with emails, they will fire off an email and then forget about it. It actually was just to clear their brain or to clear their to-do list. So give yourself some time. If it's not urgent or important to you, give it some time. They might not reply again. They might have fixed it themselves. They might have forgotten about it. So just with emails, give yourself some time. You don't have to answer everything straight away. I hope that helps. So we've got about 3 minutes left if there are any questions. But I hope that you've enjoyed this session. I hope that you are able to go away and or have had an hour to think about emails and maybe think about them slightly differently to how you were before the webinar started. The course is available now to purchase. It's, as I said, it's a 6-module course that you can do pretty quickly, and it will give you lots of tips and tricks on there to help you manage emails. If we don't have any more questions, then I will say goodbye. Thank you. Oh, Karen said, how about thank you for emailing? We have a huge number of requests on this nature, and we will try to get to your deck and review when he has time. Perfect. Setting up an out of office or an automatic reply. Absolutely perfect. Yeah. So if there aren't any more questions, then I will say goodbye. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with me. I know how busy assistants are, and I always appreciate everybody spending time with me. So if you have any questions, I'm always available. You can email me at nikki@practicallyperfectpa.com. I'm across all of the social media platforms, so feel free to drop me a note. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully I should say we have a Tech and Tools virtual summit coming up in December. So hopefully I'll see some of you at that event as well. But for now, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.